My name is Elana Gorokhova, and I'm thrilled and honored to read in such formidable company. What I'll read is a scene from my memoir, A Mountain of Crumbs, about growing up in Soviet Russia. It will be published by Simon & Schuster in January 2010, and later that year it will come out in the UK and also Germany and Italy. The memoir acquired its voice 5 years ago when I took Frank McCourt's extraordinary workshop here at the Southampton Writers' Conference. And since then, I've been back every summer studying with Frank again and then with Matt Clam and Roger Rosenblatt. It is this Writers' Conference that encouraged, supported, and guided me in writing this book. Quite simply, I couldn't have done it without you. I'm from the experience in third grade of a school in Leningrad. It is one day before November 7th, the anniversary of the Great October Socialist Revolution, a topic our third grade teacher, Vera Pavlovna, is passionate about in our history class. Stretching her arm forward, like Lenin in the statues scattered around the city, she tells us how the retired cruiser Aurora, which is now permanently anchored on the Neva, fired a blank shot signaling the storming of the Winter Palace. Workers and peasants, she says, ruthlessly exploited by the Tsar, climbed over the palace gate, ran up the October staircase, and arrested the provisional government. The part about the provisional government remains murky, since she never explains how this government came to replace the Tsar and why it too had to be overthrown, why it needed to be overthrown if it was already the dethroned Tsar who had plunged the country into the pitiful abyss requiring revolutionary intervention. As her voice trembles describing the arrest, I try to picture a crowd of workers and peasants inside the Winter Palace, the home of the Hermitage, stomping their boots up the October staircase with its inlaid marble floors, hurtling past the throne of Peter the Great with their hammers and scythes. I cannot help thinking that despite Vera Pavlovna's ardor, they wouldn't allow anything of that kind today, when simply to enter the Hermitage, you must put on cloth slippers, cinch them around your ankles, and glide slowly under the gaze of babushkas in the corner of every room, making sure that you don't come too close to the royal china or priceless oils. Tomorrow, November 7th, says our teacher, all across the Soviet Union, from our glorious capital to the permafrost of the Siberian taiga, we will celebrate the anniversary of the Great October Socialist Revolution. Why is it the October Revolution if we celebrate it in November? Asks Dimka the hooligan from the last row. Vera Pavlovna stops in the middle of her story and looks at him with disbelief. The Julian Gregorian calendar change is first-grade information, but even back then, Dimka obviously wasn't listening. Shame on you, she says, pointing at him Lenin style. Shame on you and your ignorance. She pauses to let Dimka's shame and hopelessness to sink to an appropriate depth in each of us. After a minute of silence, as the train of her narration is irrevocably off track, she turns to more recent happenings. In 2 days, she says, when we return to school after the holiday, we are going to have a celebration of our own. A great honor will be bestowed upon you. You will become young pioneers. Every year in the school gym, 3 sections of third graders, lined in the perfect rows, take the young pioneer oath and have red kerchiefs tied around their necks by the 7th graders, who in their turn, at 14, rotate out of the pioneers to join the Young Communist League. All of you will take the oath in 2 days, the first step on the great road to becoming a communist, continues Vera Pavlovna as she looks at Dimka. With a shake of her head, she lets us know that, despite school policy, he is obviously undeserving of this honor. The Code of Young Pioneers, which is posted on our classroom wall, requires good behavior and good grades of all its prospective participants. So technically, Dimka is not eligible. But in reality, every person in every class gets a red kerchief, and Vera Pavlovna can do nothing to stop Dimka from joining in. We all know, of course, that she would never try. She understands the necessity of diverging in practice from what's written on paper, of rules being something you recite and aspire to, not something you follow. It is clear to everyone that it wouldn't look proper if some people during the ceremony remained unkerchiefed, raising all kinds of questions about their intent and allegiance. Look at our pioneer hero of the past, says Vera Pavlovna, and points to the portrait of Pavlik Morozov hanging on the wall next to Tolstoy. His story is in our textbooks, but Vera Pavlovna recites it again. A son of wealthy peasants, Pavlik found out that his father was hiding sacks of wheat in his cellar, while people were starving. At night, this brave boy ran across the fields to the local Soviet and told them about the grain. The next morning, the soldiers came to his house and confiscated the wheat. The local commissariat gave Pavlik Morozov a medal. Vera Pavlovna nods her head to punctuate the last word. I glance at Pavlik's solemn head, looking down on us in a red pioneer kerchief and a halo of righteous superiority. What happened to the father? Asks Dimka from the last row. Vera Pavlovna pauses and looks at him with a hopeless smile. Even if you don't know what happened to Pavlik's father, everyone knows what should have happened to him for hiding wheat from starving people. For this serious crime and for breaking Stalin's decree to give up all the harvest to the people, citizen Morozov the Elder was arrested and served 10 years in the camps, announces Vera Pavlovna. I'm not sure that ratting on your father and having him shipped to Siberia is a heroic thing to do, even if it saved someone from starvation. But I don't say anything, and no one else does either, to contradict Vera Pavlovna in praising Pavlik Morozov's vigilance and valor. We all know that some things are so obvious, you just don't debate them. You don't debate what's written in history textbooks. You pretend you think that Pavlik Morozov was a true hero deserving a medal, just as in nursery school we pretended to chew the bread with rancid butter when the teacher was looking in our direction. But Dimka, because of his ignorance or stupidity, does not know the unwritten rules. Unlike the rest of us, he doesn't weigh what to say before he says it. He doesn't rehearse in his mind to make sure that what rolls out of his mouth will fit the code of young pioneers. So once in a while, he can ask an interesting question.